Have you ever wondered if God notices the things no one else sees? Have you ever felt that your smallest efforts disappear into silence, unnoticed and unrewarded? And have you ever questioned whether the quiet acts you do out of love truly matter to heaven? Saint Thérèse of Lisieux would answer gently and without hesitation, yes, they matter more than you imagine. God does not reward what shines. He rewards what is hidden and done with love. Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. Subscribe if you wish to walk this little way and learn how God delights in what the world overlooks. Saint Thérèse lived convinced of one profound truth. God's eyes are drawn not to greatness, but to smallness offered with love. While the world measures value by visibility, results, and applause, God measures by intention, humility, and trust. What He rewards most often happens in silence, unnoticed, unpraised, unseen. This is the heart of the little way. Thérèse believed that holiness is not built through extraordinary sacrifices, but through ordinary moments transformed by love. She wrote, "To pick up a pin for love can convert a soul." That sentence alone reveals everything. A pin, something insignificant, something invisible. Yet when lifted with love, it becomes precious to God. Imagine the convent where Thérèse lived. No grand miracles, no dramatic gestures, just narrow corridors, simple meals, routine duties, ordinary people. And yet, she believed heaven was full of movements happening there, because love was present in the smallest things. God rewards in silence because love itself is quiet. Think of how many acts in your life pass without recognition, a moment of patience when you wanted to react, a silent prayer offered for someone who hurt you, a choice to remain gentle when no one would have blamed you for hardness, a small sacrifice no one noticed, a kindness that was never acknowledged. According to Thérèse, these are the acts that echo most loudly in heaven. The world trains us to look for results. God looks for surrender. The world celebrates noise. God delights in silence. The world rewards success. God rewards love. This is why so few notice these acts, because they are not meant to be noticed by people. They are meant to be seen by God alone. Saint Thérèse warned that when we begin to seek recognition, even subtly we risk losing the purity of intention that makes an act beautiful in God's eyes. She believed that love must remain hidden to stay free. Once it seeks applause, it becomes heavy. But when it stays small, it becomes powerful. Picture a simple moment. Thérèse sweeping the floor. No one watching, no praise, no importance. She could rush. She could complain inwardly. Instead, she offers the act quietly. "Jesus, this is for you." And in that moment, heaven responds, silently, tenderly, fully. This is why God rewards in silence. Because love does not need witnesses, it needs sincerity. In this journey through 8 small acts God rewards in silence, we will uncover the quiet gestures that shape the soul, attract grace, and build holiness without noise. Acts so small that most overlook them, yet so powerful that God treasures them. Before we move forward, pause and ask yourself, what small act of love have I been doing that no one sees? And am I willing to keep doing it, even if no one ever notices? God already has. The first small act God rewards in silence is one that Saint Thérèse of Lisieux practiced every day, often without anyone realizing it, choosing patience when it would be easier to react. Patience, in the little way, is not passive endurance. It is an active offering of love in moments when the heart feels pressed, misunderstood, or irritated. Thérèse believed that these moments, so ordinary and so uncomfortable, are among the most precious to God, precisely because they cost something interior. She wrote, "Perfection consists in doing His will, in being what He wants us to be." And often God's will is hidden in restraint rather than action. Imagine a small, familiar situation. Someone speaks sharply to you. A misunderstanding arises. You feel the immediate impulse to explain yourself, to defend your dignity, to correct the tone, to respond with the same sharpness. No one would blame you if you did. Everything in you feels justified, and yet you pause. You choose silence over reaction, gentleness over retaliation, peace over winning. This choice may go completely unnoticed by others. The moment passes. Life moves on. No one applauds. No one thanks you. But according to Saint Thérèse, God notices everything that love restrains. Patience offered in silence is a hidden sacrifice. It is invisible to the world, but luminous to heaven. Thérèse experienced this often in the convent. She lived with people of very different temperaments. Some misunderstood her. Some irritated her deeply. She admitted that certain personalities were especially difficult for her, and yet she chose again and again to respond with kindness instead of coldness. She once described how she smiled at a sister who annoyed her, not because she felt loving, but because she wanted to love. That small interior victory, she believed, delighted God more than any visible achievement. Why does God reward this act in silence? Because patience reveals trust, trust that God sees, trust that justice does not need to be immediate, trust that love is stronger than reaction. The world rewards quick responses, sharp comebacks, visible strength. God rewards restraint because restraint protects charity. Patience also purifies intention. When no one notices your effort, you are forced to ask yourself, why am I doing this? If the answer is love alone, the act becomes pure. This is why few notice it, because patience has no sound, no applause, no evidence, and yet it shapes the soul quietly, deeply, permanently. Ask yourself gently, where has God invited me to be patient lately? Who tests my heart in small ways? What reactions am I being asked to surrender in silence? Saint Thérèse would say, this is holy ground. The second small act God rewards in silence is one that Saint Thérèse of Lisieux treasured deeply, even though it rarely appeared meaningful to others, accepting small inconveniences without complaint. In the little way, inconveniences are not interruptions to holiness. They are its raw material. Thérèse understood that most of life is not made of great trials, but of tiny discomforts that test the heart quietly. Waiting longer than expected, being interrupted while tired, enduring noise, discomfort, misunderstandings, delays, physical unease, or moments when things simply do not go as planned. She wrote with simplicity, everything is a grace, even the things that irritate us. Imagine a day that unfolds differently than you hoped. Plans change, someone delays you. A task becomes harder than expected. Your body feels tired, your mind feels scattered. Nothing dramatic happens, just a series of small frustrations that brush against your patience. Most people pass through these moments unconsciously, reacting internally with irritation, resistance, or complaint, even if silently. But Thérèse chose differently. She believed that accepting these small inconveniences with love was one of the purest ways to offer herself to God. Not because inconvenience is good in itself, but because love transforms what is unpleasant into an offering. Picture Thérèse walking through the convent on a cold morning. The floor chills her feet. The air is sharp. Her body feels weak. She does not dramatize the discomfort. She does not dwell on it. She simply lifts her heart and says interiorly, Jesus, this too is for you. No one notices. Nothing changes outwardly. And yet something changes within. Why does God reward this act in silence? Because it purifies attachment, because it teaches the soul to love without conditions, because it trains the heart to remain open even when circumstances resist it. Complaining, even internally, tightens the soul. Acceptance softens it. Thérèse believed that every small inconvenience accepted peacefully was like placing a flower at God's feet, unnoticed by others, but precious to Him. She once compared these acts to petals falling silently from a rose. No noise, no spectacle, only fragrance. The world teaches us to seek comfort, efficiency, and control. God invites us to trust Him in discomfort, inefficiency, and surrender. And this trust, when lived quietly, draws grace. Ask yourself gently, what small inconveniences have I been resisting lately? Where have I allowed irritation to take root? What moment today could become an offering if I accepted it with love? According to Saint Thérèse, this is how holiness grows, not by avoiding inconvenience, but by embracing it without complaint. The third small act God rewards in silence is one that Saint Thérèse of Lisieux considered essential to the purity of love, doing good without being seen, thanked, or remembered. This act is so hidden that it often passes unnoticed not only by others, but even by the soul who performs it. And yet, according to Thérèse, it is one of the acts that draws the deepest delight from God's heart. She wrote, "The good God does not look at the greatness of our actions, nor even at their difficulty, but at the love with which we do them. When love is truly pure, it does not seek witnesses. Imagine a small moment in daily life. You help someone quietly. You correct a mistake no one would have noticed. You pray for someone who will never know. You clean something that others assume just happened. You choose to serve without announcing yourself, without leaving a trace. No one thanks you. No one praises you. No one even realizes what you did. And yet, God sees." Thérèse believed that love loses nothing when it is hidden. In fact, it gains freedom. When no recognition is expected, intention remains pure. The soul is no longer tempted to measure its worth by response or reward. In the convent, Thérèse deliberately sought these hidden opportunities. She would take on small, unnoticed tasks. She would serve sisters who were unlikely to return kindness. She would do good where there was no chance of acknowledgement because she wanted her love to belong to God alone. Why does God reward this act in silence? Because hidden love mirrors His own. God works constantly without applause. He sustains life quietly. He forgives secretly. He gives endlessly, unseen. When you choose to love without being noticed, you are loving with God's own heart. The world trains us to be visible, to be acknowledged, to be validated. Even good deeds are often performed with an unconscious desire to be seen. Thérèse understood this temptation and gently resisted it. She wanted her love to be free, unattached to outcome, reaction, or praise. Hidden goodness also protects the soul from discouragement. When love expects nothing, it cannot be disappointed. When love seeks no response, it remains peaceful. Ask yourself honestly, do I feel hurt when my efforts go unnoticed? Do I quietly hope someone will recognize my goodness? Do I measure my love by how others respond? These questions are not accusations, they are invitations. Thérèse teaches that the soul becomes lighter when it stops needing to be seen. Love becomes simpler, more joyful, more like a child playing quietly at the feet of God. The beauty of this act is that it trains the heart to live before God alone, and what is lived before God never disappears, even when the world forgets. The fourth small act God rewards in silence is one that Saint Thérèse of Lisieux practiced with great fidelity, though it often went unnoticed even within her own soul, accepting your own weakness without discouragement. This act is deeply interior. There is no visible gesture, no outward sign. It happens quietly in the heart, in moments when you become aware of your limitations and choose trust instead of self-contempt. Thérèse wrote with striking honesty, "I am happy to see myself imperfect." These words may sound surprising, but they reveal a profound spiritual truth. Thérèse did not rejoice in imperfection itself. She rejoiced in what imperfection allowed her to do, depend completely on God. Most people respond to weakness with frustration, with shame, with harsh self-judgment, with the silent belief that they should be better by now. But Thérèse chose another path. When she noticed her faults, impatience, distraction, emotional sensitivity, spiritual dryness, she did not retreat inwardly. She did not punish herself. She did not withdraw from God. Instead, she turned toward Him with simplicity and said in her own way, "This is who I am, and I trust you here." Why does God reward this act in silence? Because discouragement is rooted in pride, the belief that we should be strong on our own. Acceptance of weakness, when joined to trust, is humility, and humility opens the heart wide to grace. Accepting your weakness does not mean excusing sin. It means refusing to let failure become a barrier between you and God. Thérèse believed that falling did not displease God. Refusing to get back up with trust did. Picture a child learning to walk. The child falls again and again. But each time the child looks toward the parent and not away. The child does not analyze the fall. She does not condemn herself. She simply reaches out to be lifted. This is the act God rewards in silence. When you notice your weakness and choose hope instead of despair, you offer God something precious, confidence in His mercy. Thérèse taught that God delights in souls who trust Him even in their failures. She believed that such trust consoles the heart of God more than visible success ever could. Ask yourself gently, how do I react when I see my weakness? Do I become discouraged? Do I withdraw from prayer? Do I grow harsh toward myself? Or do I turn toward God with childlike trust? This act may never be seen by others. No one knows the interior battle you fight. No one witnesses the moment you choose hope instead of self-accusation. And yet, according to Saint Thérèse, heaven notices. Because every time you trust God in your weakness, you proclaim, silently but powerfully, that His mercy is greater than your limits. The fifth small act God rewards in silence is one that Saint Thérèse of Lisieux lived constantly, often without anyone realizing its cost, choosing kindness when the heart feels closed. This act is subtle. It does not always feel sincere. It is not born from emotion, but from intention. And precisely because it goes against the inner resistance of the heart, it becomes deeply precious to God. Thérèse understood that kindness is not measured by how easily it flows, but by how faithfully it is chosen. She wrote, "I wanted to give Jesus the flowers of little sacrifices." Many of those flowers were acts of kindness offered when she felt dry, tired, misunderstood, or emotionally distant. Imagine a moment that feels ordinary. Someone speaks to you when you want to be alone. A request interrupts your rest. A person irritates you for reasons you cannot explain. Your heart closes slightly. You feel no warmth, no desire to engage, and yet you choose kindness, a gentle tone, a patient response, a small smile, a restrained word. Nothing dramatic happens, no one applauds, perhaps no one even notices. But according to Saint Thérèse, this is one of the most beautiful offerings you can give God. Why does God reward this act in silence? Because kindness offered without feeling is pure love. It is love chosen, not love enjoyed. It is love that costs something interior. Thérèse believed that love is most authentic when it is not supported by emotion. She understood that feelings fluctuate, but intention forms the soul. When kindness is chosen deliberately, it becomes a quiet victory of grace over self. In the convent, Thérèse lived alongside sisters whose personalities clashed with her own. She admitted this openly. Yet instead of withdrawing, she practiced deliberate kindness, greeting them warmly, listening attentively, responding gently. Not because it came naturally, but because she wanted to love as God loves. She once wrote that she treated difficult people as if they were messengers sent by God to help her grow in love. This perspective transformed irritation into offering. The world often equates authenticity with acting according to feelings. Thérèse taught something deeper. Authentic love is acting according to charity, even when feelings resist. Ask yourself quietly, where has my heart felt closed lately? Who have I found difficult to love? What small act of kindness could I offer, even without emotional warmth? These acts rarely leave traces. They are forgotten quickly. They do not produce visible change. But they shape the soul silently, forming it into a place where God feels at home. Kindness offered in dryness teaches the heart to love freely, without reward, without response, without conditions. The sixth small act God rewards in silence is one Saint Thérèse of Lisieux practiced with remarkable consistency, even when it cost her deeply, accepting misunderstanding without defending yourself. This act is painful in a quiet way. It touches the instinct to explain, to justify, to correct the image others hold of us. And yet Thérèse believed that when accepted with love, misunderstanding becomes a powerful offering, one that closely unites the soul to Christ. She wrote, "I prefer to remain in the truth of God rather than in the justice of men." These words reveal her interior freedom. Thérèse was not indifferent to truth, but she trusted God to be her defender. Imagine a moment when you are misunderstood. Someone interprets your actions wrongly. Your intentions are questioned. You are seen as careless, unkind, or negligent, even when you know your heart was sincere. Everything in you wants to clarify, to speak, to restore balance. And yet, you remain silent. Not out of fear, not out of resentment, but out of love. This silence is not weakness. It is strength offered back to God. Why does God reward this act in silence? Because it requires deep trust. Trust that God sees your heart. Trust that truth does not need immediate vindication. Trust that love is more important than reputation. Thérèse lived this many times in the convent. She was often misunderstood, seen as fragile, overly sensitive, or insignificant. She did not rush to correct these impressions. Instead, she accepted them as part of her path of littleness. She believed that when the soul stops defending itself, God begins to act, not always visibly, not always immediately, but always faithfully. The world teaches us to protect our image, to control narratives, to correct misunderstandings quickly. Thérèse teaches something radically different, to let God be your explanation. This does not mean allowing injustice when love requires speech. It means discerning when silence preserves charity better than words. Thérèse understood that many misunderstandings fade when met with patience and love, while explanations often inflame them. Ask yourself gently, where have I felt misunderstood lately? Where do I feel the urge to justify myself? Could this be an invitation to trust God more deeply? Accepting misunderstanding purifies the heart from attachment to approval. It loosens the need to be seen as right, good, or competent, and in that freedom the soul becomes lighter. Thérèse believed that God rewards this act not with public vindication, but with interior peace, a peace that does not depend on others' opinions, a peace rooted in belonging to God alone. The seventh small act God rewards in silence is one that Saint Thérèse of Lisieux lived with deep serenity, even when it cost her longing and unanswered desire, waiting without losing trust. Waiting is one of the quietest forms of suffering. It has no shape, no clear end, no visible progress, and yet Thérèse believed that waiting, when lived with confidence, becomes one of the most beautiful offerings a soul can give to God. She wrote, "I wait for heaven with patience and love." Her waiting was not passive resignation. It was an act of love sustained in time. Think of the moments in your life when nothing seems to move. Prayers unanswered, doors unopened, desires delayed, solutions postponed. Waiting tempts the heart to grow restless, anxious, or discouraged. It whispers questions that slowly erode trust. Why is God silent? Have I been forgotten? Should I take control? Should I stop hoping? Thérèse faced these questions often, especially in her final years when illness weakened her body and spiritual dryness tested her faith. And yet she chose to wait, not with bitterness, but with simplicity. Why does God reward this act in silence? Because waiting tests the purity of trust, because it reveals whether love depends on results, because it teaches the soul to rest in God's presence rather than His timing. Waiting without losing trust means remaining open even when nothing happens. It means continuing to love even when nothing changes. It means staying gentle when the heart grows tired. Picture Thérèse sitting quietly, her strength fading, her future uncertain. She does not demand explanations. She does not force meaning. She simply stays, present, trusting, surrendered. Waiting like this is not weakness. It is spiritual courage. The world teaches us to fill silence, to fix delays, to rush outcomes. Thérèse teaches us to honor silence as a place where God works invisibly. She believed that grace often moves most deeply when nothing appears to be happening. Ask yourself gently, where am I waiting right now? What outcome am I tempted to control? Can I remain trusting even without answers? Waiting without losing trust reshapes the soul. It loosens anxiety. It purifies hope. It teaches the heart that God's love is not measured by speed but by fidelity. The eighth and final small act God rewards in silence is the one that gathers all the others into a single movement of love. The act Saint Thérèse of Lisieux considered the soul of the little way itself, doing everything with pure intention for God alone. This act has no visible form, no measurable outcome, no external sign. It lives entirely in the heart. Thérèse wrote, "It is love alone that gives value to all things. Without love, even great works are empty. With love, even the smallest gesture becomes eternal." Pure intention means this: you do not act to be seen, to feel good, to prove your worth, or to secure approval. Not even God's approval in a transactional sense. You act simply because you love Him, and that love, when sincere, is enough. Imagine two identical actions, the same kindness, the same sacrifice, the same patience. Outwardly they look the same, but inwardly they are completely different. One is done with self-awareness, expectation, or subtle pride. The other is done quietly, forgotten as soon as it is offered. According to Saint Thérèse, God rewards the second, always in silence. Why? Because pure intention unites the soul directly to God. It removes intermediaries, it removes calculation, it removes self-focus. The heart becomes simple. Thérèse lived this simplicity deliberately. She trained herself to forget her good deeds the moment they were done. Not because they were unimportant, but because she wanted them to belong to God, not to her memory. She believed that remembering our sacrifices too carefully can slowly turn love inward. Pure intention also frees the soul from discouragement. When love is offered for God alone, outcomes lose their power. Success does not inflate. Failure does not crush. Recognition does not matter. Silence becomes peaceful. This is the hidden strength of the little way. Think about your own life. How often do you measure your goodness by results? By feelings, by responses, by visible fruit? Thérèse gently invites you to lay all of that down. Do what you can. Do it with love. Then let it go. This final act, pure intention, is why the other 7 acts remain small, quiet, and often unnoticed. Because the moment love seeks recognition, it stops being small. And the moment it stops being small, it stops being free. God rewards in silence because silence protects love. In heaven, Thérèse believed, we will be astonished not by the great works remembered, but by the countless small acts forgotten, acts that never made noise, never left traces, never asked for acknowledgement. And yet they shaped souls, they built holiness, they delighted God. As this journey ends, return gently to the beginning. Your patience, your acceptance, your hidden goodness, your trust in weakness, your kindness without feeling, your silence in misunderstanding, your waiting without losing hope, your pure intention. None of these are lost. None are wasted. None go unnoticed. They are gathered quietly into God's heart, where love is never forgotten and where the smallest acts shine with eternal weight. This is the promise of Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. This is the beauty of the little way, and this is the secret joy of loving God in silence.